my name is Bernardo. I'm a Portuguese developer. I'm 22. I am CEO at WaveLength Labs. Me and my team were onboarded to essentially help rebuild the Velos ecosystem, improve it, bring deeper, newer functionalities to the chain as the previous ecosystem was sort of outdated. Um, and so it meant bringing some newer tech to the chain. Wavelength is the first product of that. It's based off of Balancer v2. It uses that framework. Um, it gives a lot of efficiency advantages over traditional AMMs, and so we thought it would be a perfect architecture for the what is supposed to be the main liquidity hub for Velos. And so it felt like a natural fit because under the current environment, you kind of need capital efficiency, and we felt like that was one of the best systems for that. And so, really the goal is to optimize liquidity utilization on chain.
Okay, so that clears some stuff up. So you guys were brought in to fix it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your previous experience? What stuff have you guys worked on before?
So our very first project was Senior Ash Protocol over on Phantom Network. It got pretty big. We got to 28 mil at the all-time high. Other than that, we have done a lot of contracted work for a few projects, building websites, things like that. Or just the dApps themselves. We've been around not for that long. A year and a half is how long our team has been working in DeFi. We're still pretty young. Yeah, it's been quite a ride, an incredible journey. And yeah, we had some decent experience in managing large protocols, so this is not our first time rolling with this. And we do have we are fortunate because we have access to a lot of resources that most teams do not. Like, this project is bigger than just us. We have in total, I think there's more than 15 people working on the project right now. Because there's advisors, there's parts of the Velos team, there's partners that we are onboarding, marketing teams that we're hiring. So we're really fortunate because we have access to a lot of brain power that we wouldn't, normal developer teams don't usually have, just because there's a lot of resources available to help developers.
Yeah, fantastic. That's cool. That gives us an opportunity here with some of the later questions to dig into some of those, because that's a little bit of what you just talked about is a lot of what I'm curious about once we get through the inner workings of the project. So, all right, so you guys have the experience. You wanted to create a DEX, right? That's how we get some liquidity and attractiveness over there. So what DEX models did you guys base this off of? Compare it to try to make it as successful as possible?
So, we when we were looking into how we would do this, there were a few interesting options. There's obviously concentrated liquidity, which is an interesting option that's newer than traditional Uni v2 style pools. Then there's the balancer architecture, and then there's the curve architecture, which is a little bit different. So the reason we chose balancer v2 was multifaceted. So first, we thought it was just much better than traditional Uni pools. because, well, let's face it, they are becoming outdated. In terms of capital efficiency, in terms of liquidity utilization, the data just backs that up. I mean, UniV3 was a huge leap forward. Weighted pools are a huge leap forward. Boosted pools are a massive leap forward. Stable pools are a massive leap forward. These pools are just much less efficiency. They have much higher capital requirements to achieve the same the same level of low slippage as all these other pools. So that was just not a good approach because that's just not enough these days. Then the curve architecture we sort of felt was a bit limited. It's amazing and it's an incredible product, but in terms of liquidity pools, I mean, it's just stable pools plus UniV2, traditional UniV2 style pools. I mean, so what would be the great advantage there? Not really the best. Then concentrated liquidity, actually, we find it very, very interesting because it's super efficient. But we didn't think it would be a good fit to be the main liquidity hub for a chain, at least starting out, because there's just such a high level of knowledge that's required to just even use it. It's just not
Yeah,
very
I
user
agree.
friendly. So it wasn't very appealing, right? So we landed at Balancer V2, and here's the thing: it had everything that we needed because it has stable pools, which is awesome for hosting stable liquidity on your chain because it makes the trading experience far better. Slippage is diminished by like 90%. Um, then you have weighted pools, which are very interesting because they're so flexible, right? They allow you to use multiple tokens, multiple assets inside of one pool with multiple different percentages to each asset. So it's essentially an index fund. And the advantage with that is that because of the combination of that tool plus the smart order router, you can create really appealing index fund pools with decent yield that increase your efficiency because the smart order router will utilize all of the available liquidity on the DEX to execute the most profitable trade for that specific token and token route. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, and you can still use normal pools. You can use stable pools, or you can have them in an index fund. They give you a lot of flexibility, and also there's just more technology available with boosted pools and metastable pools. So boosted pools are pools that are done for yield-bearing receipt tokens of other platforms, and these pools are incredible because they allow users to stake liquidity in two places at once. Because essentially they are utilizing the liquidity that's sitting dormant inside of the pool to deposit in the lending platform and collect yield from it as well. And then you have metastable pools, which are a variation of this, but for liquid staking receipt tokens, liquid staking tokens, and essentially, they provide very much the same boost to your yield, which is very interesting for a user, and it's better at attracting capital because, well, the pool is more efficient, your users make more money from it, and well, overall, it's a sustainable way of increasing your users' yield because you're not relying on inflation, you're not relying on token emissions to be able to do this. You're doing this organically with just better utilization of the capital that's available.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to cough there for a second, like right as I wanted to talk. I didn't want to do that in the microphone. Yeah, I think that's awesome what you guys are doing. I agree, especially with your approach to concentrated liquidity with not starting with that. Just because what I've seen lately is people are around the space are really still trying to understand it, right? So launching a project with something that the vast majority of people don't understand is probably a killer. So I think that was a good approach. And then what I like about your guys' stuff, so we'll start digging a little bit more into is I do like your smart order routing and utilizing the liquidity to get the best possible returns, right? I mean, you're paying attention to what's happening with tech and implementing tech, and kind of bringing that first to this chain as you try to save it, which I think is good. And then what I also like about your pools is that your pools are based in really, you know, the primary assets, right? The ones that everybody wants to hold, whether that's BNB or Bitcoin or Ethereum or, you know, even some of the other blockchains like, you know, Polygon and AVAX. So what was really your rationale there for focusing on those pools? Was that just because of people's risk aversion in the current market and trying to attract liquidity that way?
Well, so it's a multifaceted thing. So there's a few reasons for the pool structure on Wavelength. One of the reasons is that it's on an entirely separate asset class from the remaining projects on Velis. When we launched the project, we made the decision with the Velis chain to essentially deprecate the previous bridge system that had been implemented and adopt multi-chain. This was done for like essentially accessibility reasons because multi-chain is much more widely used. So it would be a good partnership that would allow more people to be able to come onto Velis and with less friction. Um, but it also comes with a consequence, which is the wrapped assets that multi-chain bridges onto the chain are not the same as the ones that were minted by the previous bridge. So it put us on an entirely separate asset class for tokens like wrapped ETH or wrapped BUSD. But you know the tokens themselves that are on Velis chain, of course, they could be on the DEX. But yeah, well, there's a problem with that, which is exactly what you said. People's risk aversion right now is massive. And I don't want, like, none of us wanted to put anything on that pool that we wouldn't feel confident would withstand the pressure of the bear market. It's just poor risk management, even for your users, to incentivize them to hold something that you are unsure can withstand the pressure of the bear market. Now, obviously, this isn't a permanent thing because Wavelength is an ecosystem DEX. It's there to incentivize the ecosystem, and as it's being built out, more projects are being brought out and brought to the chain, and partnering with Velis and with Wavelength and having that support and making sure that we know these projects can survive a bear market and are good for their users. We will be adding more ecosystem tokens and other projects to the pool selection. And but yeah, it was really based off of those two factors. One, you know, risk aversion right now is huge and for good reason. We are trying to offer a solid where we're trying to give people a solid offering in terms of pool selection. And actually the goal is very simple, which is Velis is trying to attract liquidity and attract capital. For that, they need the DEX to sustain its emissions. And so the APRs are pretty high right now because we are literally going, well, the project itself is going to be maintaining those emissions and have support in maintaining those emissions because it's a concerted effort to attract more liquidity to the chain. So you know it's really an expansion effort, and you to start you have to start with those blue chips that everyone likes and everyone wants to hold. You know, and there is going to be an expansion. We're in talks with a few partners, and we'll be coming out with announcements and everything soon on that. We are in talks with quite a few projects to bring on some interesting things onto the chain. But yeah, to start off, we thought just stick to what makes the most sense and what people want the most, and then build off from that. And as things expand and the protocol expands, we can grow out that selection.
Yeah, I agree with. I mean, obviously, I agree with your approach. That's the first thing I thought of. And you guys have really great, attractive APRs. Like, you got a stable pool here with USDC and BUSD offering 36.6%. Obviously, that stuff will go down as more liquidity flows in and more money goes in. But it's attractive. It's safe, as relatively safe as you could consider in DeFi. Everything in DeFi is a risk. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I like your thought. I like your thought approach there. You're thinking about your end user. You're not just thinking about. I mean, clearly, based off some of the things you've said, you're not a team that's out here for a money grab. You have the resources to build this out and play the long game. Things that a lot of other people don't have. So you didn't have to do these quick cash grabs, which I think is a message that probably needs to get out there a little bit more. So I'm excited that I got to talk to you about this too, because obviously I don't know the inner workings of your project, which is why I wanted to talk to you. So that's really good stuff to hear. And then so if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about the tokenomics for you guys, right? So I looked up the breakdown. All right, you guys have extremely low team fees, and great vesting terms, right, to prevent the pump and dumps. And even the ones that don't have vesting are, incredibly small amounts. I think the highest non-vested is only 1%, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
of
and
token
and the
allocation. Yeah.
ecosystem fund does have it's the heaviest because it's going to be used to support ecosystem projects, essentially in either missions or token swaps, things like this, for big partnerships. But it is in a multi-sig that includes the Vela CEO. So essentially, it was done in a way that even the one that has the most tokens unlocked, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone knows that the Vela CEO does not need more VLX. So
Yeah.
it was done in a way that we would make sure that everyone could feel secure. And yeah, I mean, we didn't raise any funds. We weren't trying to do any of those sort of shenanigans. Well, because we didn't need to. Like, there was absolutely no need, and no incentive. And it's a project that's there for the long run. It's a very fortunate position, like for us as developers, because we have the support to build things out and make sure that everything comes out with quality. Take our time, and just have like people cross-checking us, making sure that everything's done properly. Um, it's really a fortunate position as a dev because it allows you to do your best work and not be too concerned with a lot of things that most developers have to focus on and worry about. I mean, we've had to worry about this where you're not getting paid for quite a bit, and it's hard to work as a developer in that environment because you have that pressure of, well, am I going to make money next month? We have the support to ensure that we don't have to be concerned about that, and at the same time, we have zero incentive to be selling our team tokens. Nobody has sold any team tokens. In fact, we stake them for more. Like we're in it for the long run because it just makes more sense for us. It's not even about being like a generous dev or whatever. Nothing like that. It would just be stupid for us to be selling our team tokens at these prices, and there's literally no incentive for us to do that. So we just don't. We'd rather accumulate more.
Yeah, I mean, why do the amount of work that you're doing the way you're doing it to then dump the protocol tokens if you're, yeah, I agree with that. It doesn't make much sense. So you mentioned staking. What are the incentives to? I guess because you can do pools now, right? But you can't yet stake for the governance token, right? Or as a governance token.
So the governance token is coming out soon. We're aiming for a December launch for it, but it will depend also on auditing times because we need to make sure that we ship out secure code. But it is in development, and yes, we will be launching a governance token very soon. Um, it's in the pipeline.
And what are the? Sorry, I don't want
Current.
to ask a silly question here. What are the so for those who stake, right? What are the incentives going to be for them once that governance token is out and they're staking and locking their money?
So I'll give some alpha because we haven't revealed the full model yet. We're preparing a few Medium articles on it and documentation. But we haven't revealed the full model yet. But I can give a little bit of a breakdown without going into too much detail. But we will be adopting a mix of Balancer V2's governance model with solidly V NFTs. So people will still be depositing their microwave LPs and locking them. And no, we're not going to force anyone to do 4-year lock times or anything like that. We're aiming for 6 months maximum lock time to actually make it appealing for a retailer, at least make sense, because 4 years is just an insane amount of time in DeFi to ask for someone to lock themselves. It's basically suicidal for an investor to do so. So we're not going to do that. 6 months is the maximum lock time, and they would be locking their microwave LP into a NFT. So their locked position is in the form of a V-Wave NFT, and you will be able to trade that NFT in a secondary market, and essentially gives you a little bit extra liquidity in the sense that you can actually trade out of that position. The goal is to actually make the governance model appealing to retailers because what you see right now is, well, first, people's risk aversion is huge, and second, people are just scared. Nobody wants to lose their money. Forcing them to do 4-year lock times is absolutely crazy, and the fact that you can't do anything with that other than collect your yield and wait for you to be unlocked is also just not very user friendly because what you end up seeing in these governance models is that they are taken over by protocols because nobody else will ever have any incentive to lock their positions. What we want, and what happens is your community ends up being locked out of the party when it comes to voting on gauges or having any sort of say in governance because the only people who will ever have any incentive to lock those governance tokens are either massive whales who don't care or protocols who will use it to benefit their protocol. And so we wanted to make it a little bit more liquid, a little bit a little bit more appealing to a retailer. There's going to be several ways in which we're going to be adding value to it. I don't want to get into more detail about it, but yes, we're going to have full governance, engage voting, and all of that as well. And yes, that's about as much as I can say without revealing too much at this point. But yeah, I'm very excited to unveil that model.
No, yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you giving that out. I always hope when I write some of these questions out and I'm looking through products, I'm like, man, I hope I don't like write down some questions that they can't answer at all, because then it's like, then I don't have anything to give to the audience. So I appreciate that. But yeah, you guys have really, I'm pretty impressed so far, honestly. Not that you need my approval. That's not what I'm saying here, but I'm pretty impressed with the level of thinking that you guys have done through some of these things. With what other protocols have done with their governance, right? Which some of the concerns that you saw when when Liquid Driver owned a significant amount of in spirit. People were concerned about Liquid Driver, just dominating and controlling all the emissions back to them. And so you guys have clearly thought about ways to mitigate that and really keep the governance in the hands of users, which I think is great.
Yeah, well, to that example, it's like there's a perfect counter argument, which like yes, Liquid Driver took over Spirit and Beethoven because it wasn't even locked at all, but which even can favor that, even though I don't agree with it just because it doesn't really benefit the protocol. But either way, the idea there is because one wasn't locked, more people were staking in there, and more users are incentivized to actually use that mechanism. While when there's a 4-year lock time, 99% of retailers weren't locking their Spirit for in Spirit because, you know, why would you lock yourself for 4 years? And the problem that happened is that, yes, the only people who had any incentive to be accumulating Spirit were protocols to accumulate in Spirit so that they could have governance and incentivize their gauges or make money by accepting bribes for other people's gauges. And in a lot of ways, Liquid Driver did benefit Spirit a lot because they ended up locking a lot of the Spirit supply. And because of the way that system works, it's essentially perma-locking all of that supply, which is basically equal to burning that supply. So it is they in a lot of ways they do help, but it also takes away from all of your community because what you see is that those protocols have like what 70% of the governance compared to the community's 30% or even more.
Yeah, it's like
Well,
it was 70 when I was like an investor in Spirit. So
yeah, and it's obviously a problem because well, you give the keys to the castle to protocols who some of them might be incentivized to have the best for you, but some of them might not. And if like a lot of these things need to really be thought of as financial incentives, and if the incentive structure is not correct, um, that will affect the outcome of your system and your model. And sometimes you need to understand that if you want governance and you want to have governance that's positive, the incentive structure needs to be aligned so that the people that are voting and that do have governance and that are interested are actually want the best for your protocol. And that does also come with, trying to make the landscape of competition for governance between protocols and retailers a little bit more competitive.
yeah, I I agree with that. Sorry, I got my dog was going crazy there for half a second. I was trying to get him to shut up before. But no, I think that's a great way to look at it, right? Is if only 30% is there for the end user or the individual user to be able to access benefits from, is that really super attractive, especially when you consider like you did, right? So yes, 70% of that is locked for an extended period of time, or basically perma burned, but that's still only 30%, which also means that 70% isn't going to unlock anytime soon and provide more liquidity for them to access. So I, I'm pretty impressed with your guys' level of thinking on these little things. But then, not that that's a little thing, but just the level of details that you guys are thinking through every stage of this. Because when I first saw, without knowing your background, right, I saw some of the people that were on the team when I first got in the WaveLength Discord and saw you guys launching on Velas, and I was like, huh, like they obviously have something up their sleeve, and they got something they're trying to do here. So, but yeah, you guys are really crushing it on what you're trying to do here. So actually, my next question was gonna be what Vincent asked in AMA chat, which was about the asset managers, and so I know that HeldX here posted kind of one of your threads on it, and but that was going to be my next question was to talk about your asset managers, if you could talk any more about without you having added them yet.
Yeah, so asset manager pools are essentially, well, you can really think of them as like these little hedge fund pools where you can have someone essentially manage that index for you. They are super interesting, and it's a very cool feature. The reason we haven't added it yet is, well, it's still too early to do so on Velas. I don't see enough user appeal for it yet. Um,
That makes sense.
but once we have some of the variety of things we are going to be adding, yeah, once some of the partners are pushed through, we're going to be including them, be including them in our layout because they are very very cool. But yeah, they essentially allow someone to actively manage your that pool, and um, if you have a competent team handling it, and we do want to make sure that once it's launched in a professional way with actual advice coming in from financial engineers who know what they're doing, and actually have experience in managing an index fund. Um, but yeah, they basically allow for active management of your pool. It's an interesting concept, and there's a lot that can be done with it. In fact, there's protocols that build on top of that, to build their own little protocol around that system. And it's it's something that we will and we plan on tinkering around with. But right now, it's our focus is more on making sure that we have our boosted pools out, and our governance model out. Once that's done, we have some more breathing room. But the first stage will be focusing on boosted pools and governance.
Yeah, very nice. Then the reason I was asking, not because I, was asking why you guys hadn't launched yet, but because like reading through your papers and some of the stuff that I've seen is you guys are aiming to be way more than just a DEX, right? The DEX is the original launch. So the reason I was asking was you're seeing a lot of these DeFi asset management projects pop up, and that's kind of what I was wanting to get to. Is I had seen the post about the asset manager, and I was kind of wondering like what level of kind of asset management are you hoping to achieve on top of the DEX, or so that's kind of where my thought process was going.
So they will be essentially their own separate customized pools. We don't want to do that. We wouldn't do that with all of our pools.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be something more akin to a specific pool where users can onboard, and we'd have a specific team allocated to managing this properly and making sure that um, just making sure that they secure the most optimal returns possible to the user, because it's not a simple thing. Um, I would honestly not manage one personally. I wouldn't take that responsibility, just because it's not my area of expertise. So when we do decide to launch them, we want to have someone who's a professional, doing that specifically and who knows what they're doing, with some level of experience. Fortunately, we do have access to those sorts of people, so again, it's a privilege. Um, but yeah, doing that will be a little bit further down the line because we do want to make sure that it's done properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a smart thing, right? With what we're seeing, we're talking consistently about trying to bring more retail users or more retail investment, and then bring all this TradFi money. But one of the biggest problems with getting people from TradFi, or TradFi investors to move towards crypto was really the difficulty of a lot of this stuff. When I first started, especially in DeFi a year ago, it was like chasing down videos to try to figure out how to bridge between each blockchain and what gas was needed, and all these other things, and like how does an LP work? And it's like it can be so complicated if you haven't spent a lot of time doing it. So these like quality asset managers or these fund managers that are coming up, I think are going to be like an essential part of bringing people in and increasing their comfort level with this space. So I think it's cool that you guys are thinking about that too. And then I missed earlier, I meant to ask you, when I was talking about your tokenomics, is what are the traditional fees with the DEX, like for the swap fees and all that stuff, even with a smart order router?
So, the fees can vary from pool to pool, and even on community pools that users create, they can also set their own fees.
Oh, interesting.
The minimum is 0.0001%. The maximum is 10%. Obviously, no pool is set to 10%. The maximum fee right now is 0.3. And the stable pools have 0.01%, if I'm not mistaken. I might be missing a zero. But yeah, they're set very low. And for
Almost
protocol
free.
fees, so yeah, yeah. Well, the Valus itself is it's almost free. Like you would
Yeah,
with a cent you can trade for months.
yeah, and it's
Um,
fast, free and
yeah,
fast,
yeah.
incredibly fast.
Yeah, so essentially, the idea is that you want the experience to be um, as competitive as possible in that regard, and then yeah, there was 30% protocol fees. So of all the fees that are collected, 30% will go to the treasury. Of those 30%, um, right now everything is just stored in the treasury, but the distribution is 10% is for the team, then 50% will be for the treasury itself, and it will be basically LP'd and provided as liquidity on WaveLength itself to collect further yield from swap fees. And then the remaining 40% will be allocated towards the wave distributions once it's launched. So right now, it's just accumulating so that we have a little bit extra gunpowder when the wave launches.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I mean, basically free. That's what I think a lot of people are going to see. And then is that the same? Vincent asked again, what are your flash loan fees?
Um, 0%. They're set at 0% right now, I think.
Oh,
If I'm not mistaken. But
that
I
is
I will I will pull that up from the contracts, Vincent, and get it to you in chat, just so I don't give you a wrong number. But if I'm not mistaken, they should be set at 0%.
man, those are once you guys are, have achieved what you guys are aiming to achieve at the level that you guys are aiming to achieve it at. Talk about being, having really competitive models here. I know, some people put too much emphasis on fees, and then you get the whole questions about the race to the bottom, and fees already aren't that huge of an overhead for a project, as far as like their moneymaker, but um, it's really hard to argue when you're starting to bring lots of liquidity to the platform and tons of TVL flowing through when you are, saving those pennies here and there, especially in a current bear market. But once that goes bull, I mean, it's hard to beat. Um, so I guess that's really all I have for the tokenomics. And then what I kind of got some other questions about, like, Velos and what you guys are doing, just in general with the project and some other things. But is there anything else that you wanted to touch on about WaveLength itself or about your roadmap? I know we talked about governance and some of the other things already, but is there anything that I missed that you wanted to chat about?
So I think some of the big focuses with Wavelength are first adding new technology. Boosted pools are going to be an improvement to that. Essentially, once essential functionalities are added to Velas, for example, Amalgam, which is a lending platform that is going to be launched soon on Velas. We will be launching boosted pools in conjunction with them. So essentially, these are pools that allow you to be staking in both the lending platform and Wavelength at the same time. How they do this is you will deposit the receipt from the lending platform into those pools. They actually created LP with that receipt and some of the underlying asset token. In fact, every token inside of a boosted pool is itself a boosted pool, like an LP token. It's a real cool inception. And the big advantage with this is that they're super efficient and they also allow you to swap. And when you're swapping, they can either go and unwrap the asset or trade it directly for what's inside of that compounded LP inside of the LP. And so it's a very interesting mechanism because it's more efficient for traders and it also collects higher yield for users, for liquidity providers. So it's an interesting mechanic, and it's one of the things we are looking forward to be launching soon. We would have launched it already. We just didn't have the necessary infrastructure on Velas to be able to do so. But it's the project is moving fast, and there's a lot of people working hard. So we're going to be bringing that out soon and expanding so that Wavelength can expand with the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, man, I had some other questions here, but you answered some of them at the beginning, and then you answered some of them with your other answers. I was going to ask, you see, obviously, I know now why you guys were brought in was to kind of help, rebuild Velas, or it's Velas, and I keep saying it the wrong way, but based on, because I had looked at, right, so I got on DeFi Llama a little while ago, and, I'd seen, just the overall TVL that had flowed out, right, and then, I saw a Wagyu swap where the, the TVL had cratered kind of since FTX, close to in half, honestly, and then, obviously I was just trying to do my due diligence with you guys, and I was like, well, let's see how it's affected them, and I mean, to be honest with you, comparatively, you guys have taken a haircut, but I mean, your TVL is rising again. So I was like, man, what are they doing over there that's causing this? And then you start talking about the other projects that you're already working on and the things that are happening in the background. And so kind of took a couple of my questions away. But what I do want to ask there is, what else do you guys need to do besides build? Because Velas has the speed, they have, they are a good blockchain, right? And they clearly have people in the background working to build all these products out that they need to be successful. But what else does Velas need to regain, kind of that momentum it had, especially like in January, right, when you guys peaked in the TVL? What really needs to happen over there? And then what more, for it to be as successful as it was / as successful as you want it to be?
So to put it bluntly, Velas right now has a retailer problem. It needs a larger retail audience. And to be fair, it's a generalized problem, but I think Velas has been suffering from it a little bit worse. Because in terms of funding, they're good. Like they have like limitless amounts of funds. But they just don't have that retail audience yet, and it's been fading away a little bit. And I think there's been some problems because of some of the past experiences that people had on the blockchain. I will not mention the any projects, but there's there was some issues there. And I think it really caused some damage. So how do you fix that? Well, it's a two-pronged approach, right? You first you have um, to communicate this well and do good marketing. Um, and second, you actually have to change something. So that is, the second part is what we've been doing and what we've been discussing in this AMA. It's changing that aspect, and then the other part is you have to communicate well to the external audience and to the crypto community as a whole, what you are doing, what is being done, what's changed, and how Velos is improving and learning from its mistakes. Um, and that first part is being done. I myself spent hours in marketing agency meetings and in communication specialist meetings and things like that. And uh, there's some parties that are being onboarded and with negotiations now who are top of the line at doing this. And so it really goes about explaining what's actually under the hood. Because if you do look, there's a lot of appealing things in terms of business management. Um, there's a lot of appealing things under the hood over at Velos. There's a lot of very interesting developments, but the problem is I knew this because I was working and collaborating with them. But the outer audience didn't have access to this information. Um, I think Velos recognizes this, and they're going to start coming out and changing and really pushing that narrative because there's a lot of very interesting things um, that really make you feel a little bit more secure about the project. That give you some interesting insights, and I think there's just not been enough communication, which kind of loses your retail attention. So you need that solid marketing, and then there's another point that you kind of need to tackle, which is other than just building, you just need good business development and bringing other projects, partnering with other projects, partnering with DeFi protocols that will come onto your chain that already have a community, who already have eyes on them, who are interested to coming on and participating, because those people bring you some of their communities with them, and that is also being done. There's been a lot of meetings in terms of business development for Velos and onboarding new projects and new protocols who already have their own communities. Um, just really with the goal of expanding the ecosystem and expanding the amount of people using the chain. Because at the end of the day, what's the point of building a Ferrari if nobody's going to use it, right? So you need those retail users, you need that attention, you need those guys who are going to be in your Discord and in your Telegram talking about how much they love the chain and love the project, right?
Yeah, completely agree. And I mean, I think you guys, have some good homegrown marketing that's happened, right, from some of the community that I've seen, and then I think you've also kind of from the way I've seen it is you've taken the smart approach though in a way and really focused on building, and now it seems like you're going to start to transition a little bit towards a little bit more marketing. But I think you're focused on the right things. I mean, they do say that community is everything, right? Um, but you can't have the community if nobody knows about it. So, but I think you guys have a phenomenal, you know, product that you're building as far as the entire ecosystem that you're working on and not just wavelength. I'm had no idea with some of the stuff that you were doing, right? I've been poking around the Discord for quite a while and was always wondering what more was going on there. But um, I'm happy to help with your marketing however I can to help get the information out there, at least for what you guys are doing and the tech that you're building. And I won't be out there providing financial advice. Don't get me wrong, but I'm super impressed with what you guys are doing. I'm happy to help and continue to host you guys and talk about this as you guys progress. You just hit me up anytime and let me know. So
We appreciate it, man. It's always a pleasure coming here to talk to you.
yeah,
And
it's been a blast,
the
honestly.
questions are always fun. The questions are always fun.
Yeah, that makes me feel good. I'm glad I'm not wasting anybody's time here. And I'm sure I will have a whole lot more once you guys make some more of your announcements with some of the things you're doing, and as like the ecosystem projects start to roll in. That's stuff that I'm going to be fascinated to hear about. So I look forward to chatting about those as well. So,
Yeah,
but with that,
it's going to be a fun ride. It's an interesting one.
yeah, I mean, you guys are working hard. I think it's going to be something that pans out well for you. It'd be something that you get to enjoy. So, and I'm happy to see it play out. So I'm excited to see it play out, I should say, and happy for you guys for what you're doing. So with that, I mean, that's really all the questions that I currently have. But is there any last words that you'd like to put out? I always like to give the speaker their opportunity to put whatever message out that they want out there last.
I just want to thank everyone for coming to the MA and attending. I hope I didn't bore you guys too much with my long rants. Um, and yeah, I am excited for the project. I think there's a lot of positive signs. It's been sort of a privilege for us because it's a very privileged position as developers to be able to do things this way. And it's a very special set of conditions that you aggregate when you have that. So um, I hope everything goes well, and I am excited for the future of the project. I want to thank everyone for coming here and listening to me talk for an hour.
Now, thank you so much for your time, Bernardo. It's been a blast.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, man. Okay,
Yeah,
have a nice
absolutely.
day.
You as well. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. This has been a great talk with Bernardo from WaveLength. Thanks you so much for taking the time to speak with us and let us learn more about the project and everything that you're doing on the blockchain as a whole with the things that you have coming. Very grateful to have had this opportunity and super excited to see the progression of everything that they're doing over there. Make sure you check out their socials, get involved to learn more. They've got Discord and Twitter. I'll post the links here in the AMA chat afterwards. We'll be uploading this talk to YouTube if anybody wants to hear it again, or if you're hearing it on YouTube right now for the first time, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Once again, I'm Relentless from DeFi Raiders. We'll see you next time.